Cool, here we go. Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. This time I'm joined by Steve. Hi Steve.
Hi Theo, how's it going?
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Good.
We were in Berlin. I was in Berlin yesterday, or I am still in Berlin, but I was with our colleague Thomas and a few other folks at the stream processing meetup, which was really, really nice actually. So yeah, and excited to be with you today, virtually.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so I guess before we get into a little bit of housekeeping, what I'll do is I'll post a link to the stream, which is our Slack community. So you can kind of join in. You can also ask questions on the kind of in the YouTube comments, but you can also come into our Slack community and ask questions after the event or just chit chat with others. That'd be super nice. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, excited to get this underway and to pass over to Steve, who is going to be talking about image processing in real time using Apache Kafka and the Quix platform, using TFL data, right? Like transport for London data, is that correct?
Yeah. I'll show you all about that, but basically it is the traffic camera feeds that are all around London, which the Transport for London give the APIs for that. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll hand it over to you, and you can start showing what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. So as you said, what we're going to be doing is grabbing frames from the live traffic cameras all around London, and we'll be deploying a web page that will be able to show us, it's essentially in place of an app or something like that, that will allow us to see what's on the cameras, as well as do some image recognition on those images, so that we can then identify cars, bikes, giraffes, like pretty much any type of object that you might want to see roaming around London. I should note that this is essentially a demo that we give at conferences, and I believe Thomas was at a conference. Was it the one in Berlin it was the event in Berlin that you were at? Yeah.
So he delivered it last night, and yeah, went down really well. So excited to see how you do it today. But also, yeah, if anyone's in Munich on November 15th, Thomas will be down there delivering a similar talk, along with a few other speakers. And yeah, I'll also post the link to the talk. So yeah, back to you, but I'll put the links in as well.
Yeah, cool, thanks. So what we'll do is we're basically going to be following a tutorial that has recently gone up onto our docs site. So if we look here in platform, tutorials, and then we've got this image processing tutorial. Ironically, for an image processing tutorial, some of the images aren't being displayed, but I'll fix that after this session. But what we're basically going to be doing is deploying a bunch of components from the Quix library. And one of those uses this, it essentially uses a model called a YOLO model, or what that stands for is you only look once. So it's basically does a quick look at the image, and then it tries to identify what it's looking at. So as you know, I'll just sort of gloss over the tutorial here, but basically there's a getting started section. It says you have to sign up to the TFL website or TFL APIs site to get some API keys, and there's a kind of a description there of how to do that. And then it introduces the library, the Quix library that is, which I'll show you as part of this demo. And also it introduces you to all the components that we're going to be deploying in the demo. For the purposes of kind of practicality, we're going to be starting with the web UI, simply because that takes a few minutes to compile, because it's pulling down loads of components from the web and then building this Angular application. So it does take sort of a few minutes. So we'll, as I say, we'll start with that, and then we'll deploy all the other bits in kind of reverse order. And then we will see what happens. And it should all come together and work at the end. So as I say, we're loosely going to be following this tutorial, and you guys at home can also use that as your guide. So as I said, to start with, we're going to be deploying the UI, and I am in this new workspace that I've just created for the purpose of this demo. So I've got nothing deployed already. I've got no topics. Everything is blank. So yeah, I will look in the library and I'll just search for TFL. So there's a number of TFL components, but I'm interested first of all in the UI. As I said before, it's an Angular application, and it's all pre-configured so that you can just basically save it to your workspace and deploy it. But I will note that if you want to run it on your sort of machine at home, if you want to kind of play with the code and compile it, you will need to sort of change some settings, as is noted in this comment. You'll just want to change this to true, paste in your topic, and your workspace ID should be configured already, and your token should be configured already. But you'll want to paste in a topic, and I'll tell you what that is as we go through the, well, probably on the next page actually. So yeah, by default, the topic you want to use is called image processed merged, and that will be the output of some earlier parts of the processing pipeline. So what I'm going to do is save this as a project. And what that does is it basically saves all of the pre-built code to your workspace. I think I've explained stuff like this before, but basically what I've got now is, instead of a library item, which is where I got this code from, I've now got a project in my workspace. So if I click on that project, I can see all the code. I can, look at the HTML. I can look at the code in the Angular files to see what it all does. I'm not going to go into sort of too much detail on that right now, apart from to say that what this Angular app is doing is it's subscribing to parameter data coming from certain topics, and in this case it's the image process merge topic. And as soon as it receives some data on that topic, it will act on that by essentially putting a marker on a map and showing the image. Where is it? Showing the image in a box on the left-hand side of the screen. I can probably show you a quick preview of that so that we're not talking about stuff that's too abstract. So I'll just start something else up. Let's have a look. Is that working? Yeah, so this is basically a little preview of what we're building essentially. We'll be receiving an image here that will have objects identified on it, like cars, buses, trams, traffic lights, all that sort of thing. And then on the map, we will have where those things have been seen. So there's traffic cameras on all of the street corners and various junctions around London, and we'll actually be seeing sort of a counter, a pin kind of thing showing up where we've
actually like a little
funds.
mark or something, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So as I said, what we'll do is we'll deploy that. It's kind of good practice before you deploy some code to kind of tag it. So we'll call this V1. So we've tagged that code, and you can see that code now in the history. This history represents kind of the Git commit history. So if you change the code, new items will be put in this list, and then you can tag them and deploy whichever version you want. So I'll just deploy this V1. I'll choose V1 from the version tag list. I will make sure that I choose service, so that if there's any kind of app crashes or whatever, or issues, the service will be restarted and it will carry on running. I'll also turn on public access so that we'll basically get a URL so that we can access this dashboard, this app from outside of Quix, essentially from any web browser. So I'll call this TFL UI. I can type, no, can't. And then basically I'll just deploy that. So as I said, because this is an Angular application, it's going to be doing things like downloading all the packages that we've used, all the, what are they called in Node, packages, and compiling the app and then deploying it. So that's going to take a few minutes simply because there's loads of packages. But what we want to do next is deploy, as I said, the previous version of the previous part of the processing pipeline. And essentially what we're going to deploy next is a component called stream merge, because what we're going to have is a whole load of TFL traffic cameras, and each of those is going to send data to a separate stream. So in order for the UI to look at that data, we're going to want to merge all of those streams into one stream. And hopefully that will make sense a bit later on. But what we're going to look for is the stream merge transformation. And now instead of previewing the code, and in fact I can preview the code and you can just see that all it essentially does is every time it receives some new data, it will then send that data to an image feed stream. So basically all the data will come in and it will all go out to this image feed stream on our output topic. But as I was saying, I can either save that code and have a project in my workspace, and I would do that if I wanted to edit this code at all. But in this case, I don't want to edit the code. I'm just going to deploy this kind of pre-built executable, if you like, so that it just basically runs in Quix. So I'm going to click Set Up and Deploy. And
is this specifically for the TFL data, this stream merge, or can this be used on other data sources if you want?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this can be used on any application where you want to just merge multiple streams into one. You might want to change the name of the stream that you're kind of merging to, but essentially you could have that as like if you're doing some sort of refrigeration project, that could be like refrigerators, or if you're monitoring temperature of ovens, it could be ovens. So yeah, it could be whatever you want basically. In those cases, you would want to sort of edit the code so that you could actually change that. But the code itself essentially performs one function. And yeah, it's pretty generic. So as I said, I'm going to set up and deploy. And I've noticed a flaw in my master plan, and that is that some of my topics aren't going to be set up, but that's okay because I can change my input topic to be image processed. And all of these need to be kind of just right, because obviously we're going to be expecting the data to be arriving on these different topics. But we already know that the UI that we're deploying is going to be looking for data on this image process merge topic. And I know that the input to this merging process is going to be this image processed topic. So I can just sort of update these input and output topics as I go along. So that is going to deploy into my workspace. And as I said, I'm not going to have the code saved. So while that's deploying, if I go to the projects page, I've still only got the image processing UI project because I haven't had to save the code for the stream merge project. So if we head back to the homepage, I've got stream merge, and that is now running. That didn't have to compile, it was all pre-compiled. Image, this one is still compiling, and that's all building, and that is absolutely fine. So what we'll do is we'll deploy the next or the previous stage in the pipeline, and that is going to be another transformation, and that is going to be vision. So this is the computer vision object detection transformation, or service, and that is going to be using this the YOLO model that I mentioned earlier. It was trained, I believe, on a COCO data set, and I'm not exactly an expert sort of data scientist or anything, so I don't know exactly what that means, apart from the fact that they basically got a whole load of objects like chairs, buses, and all that sort of thing, and they trained this this ML model to recognize sort of thousands of the different images, trained it to recognize those sort of accurately and correctly. So we've basically harnessed that, and we're going to be feeding our images into this model and basically getting an output from that, as well as passing on some parameters from the sort of start of the pipeline, which is the image capture from the TFL camera feed, which gives us kind of the position of those images. And that allows us to plot the markers on the map. So again, what I'll do is set up and deploy. This needs to output to image processed, and the input will be image raw. So I can amend my input topic there to be image raw, and then deploy that to my workspace. So while it's doing that, it will actually create that image raw topic that didn't exist, so that we've now got these services correctly kind of talking to each other. So coming out of object detection, that's going to be putting its data into the image process topic, and stream merge is going to be reading all of those different streams on that image process topic. So the next, or rather previous process service in the process will be.
Also looks like the last one has already gone there.
Oh yeah, cool. The last one's deployed now. That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So yeah, we're going to be deploying another service, and what we're going to be looking for is a frame grabber, or essentially a service that will basically take frames from the video feed. So the TFL camera feed will be kind of live streaming, although I think there is a slight delay, but essentially live streaming a continuous feed of images. And we don't necessarily need to process every single one of those images. So we're going to be deploying this process, which will grab kind of every a frame every 100 milliseconds or so, so that we're just processing at the speed sort of we need it. If you need a final resolution, you could change the frame rate, or you could indeed back that off and reduce the load on the whole process. So I'm just going to again leave most of this the same, apart from change the input topic to be TFL cameras. And then the output will be images raw, which will go into the rest of the pipeline. I'm going to leave the frame rate as it is and deploy the service. It will automatically create any topics that don't exist, and you'll see that probably very briefly in the log once it's done that. So yeah, there we go. It says TFL cameras is still creating, which is absolutely fine. So we've got so far these 4 parts of the pipeline up and running, And the last one to deploy is the actual data source for this whole process, which is the TFL camera feed. So I'll go to the library again. I'll search for TFL, and we want the TFL camera feed. Once again, we can either look at the code or just deploy it straight away. And now here's where we need our API key. And again, in the sort of README for the this service or this library item, it does tell you sort of roughly how to get that API key. I have already got mine, and if I just click that so that I don't expose that to the world, and then copy and paste in my API key, I can then deploy this service. And what we should end up with is this will start reading data or streaming data from the TFL APIs. And that should all auto-magically feed down into our into the rest of our pipeline.
That's cool. Incidentally, so the Transport for London, they have a lot of publicly available kind of data out there for people to use if they want to, right?
Yeah, they do. They've got a whole load of different things like where their bikes are. So they've got sort of bikes that you can hire in London, like I think a lot of cities do these days. They've got sort of weather things. They've got bus timetabling type things, and yeah, you can import all of that with the same API keys and work with it in Quix.
Yeah, it's a good source for real time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So let's launch our UI and see if we've got anything happening. Okay, so we've got a camera that's not in use, and there we go. So we're basically now, I'll zoom in a little bit if I can, yeah. So we've basically now got this identifying cars at the moment, and you can see the various locations, Chelsea Embankment, Wilton Road, wherever that is. And you can see on the right-hand side, it's actually reporting where it's seen those cars. And if I change this to person, what we can do is see, once it sees some people, it's okay, there we go, we've seen one person. The images may be a bit blurry for identifying everything. Like, for example, it won't actually probably pick up any cats, even though there probably is the odd cat roaming around London right now. But basically, you can change this to various things. Again, you know, we probably won't see, my favorite one is a giraffe. Where's that? Yeah, we probably won't see any giraffe roaming around London. Although you could leave it on that for maybe a very long time and see what you find. But yeah, it will pick out trucks and buses and vans and all sorts of things. There we go. We've got a truck down here on the A205. So yeah, that is pretty much it for sort of this part of the demo. But you can see here that we're identifying all these things, and that's with the YOLO model. And as I say, it is doing a very quick pass over this kind of quite blurry image, and you know, doing a pretty good job. And that all of that is happening in real time as the data kind of flies through Quix through these 5 services that we've just deployed. You can, if you have a look, if you hover your mouse over these kind of green bars here, you can see how much data is actually flowing through these topics. So that's about sort of, I don't know, 120K, 200K at times, 200K. And if we take a look at, say, the computer vision service, you can see the logs being output, and that's kind of showing roughly, I think that those logs are showing what it's identifying. You can see the kind of throughput through the input topic and the output topic. And what else can we see? Oh, we could look at the messages tab. So can we look at the messages tab? No, that was probably a bad idea. So yeah, we won't do that. I'm not sure what the issue is there. It might be that that particular tab isn't good with the amount of data that we've got coming through at this moment in time. What else is good to show you? So we can see, we can normally see here how much CPU and memory is actually in use. For some reason that isn't actually updating right now, but this is normally a good place to see sort of, yeah, I've got the right number of CPUs assigned and the right amount of memory assigned. So yeah, have you got any questions, Theo, or anything else you want me to show?
No, we've got a couple of people in the comments. A guy called Hub of Gaming saying, "I love the stream. Can you give me a shout out?" There's a shout out, Hub of Gaming, and
Hub
Adventure
of Gaming.
Time, whoever you are.
Indeed. Hi, Adventure Time.
And then exactly, Adventure Time saying amazing. So yeah, no, it's a super cool demo. It's yeah, I'm also looking forward to the time that we find a giraffe.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll just leave that running, and you know, we'll get on a live stream the moment a giraffe pops into the frame, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to mention actually on the tutorial that we've got on the docs page, it does actually direct you as well to kind of deploy a webcam image capture process, as well as this decoding process. So what these will actually do is, instead of using the TFL kind of camera feed, it will actually use your own webcam to feed the dashboard and the rest of the processing pipeline. So you can actually then, you know, you could actually then hold up maybe a picture of a giraffe and see if that would recognize that, or you know, it'll recognize things in the background, like your chair, your face, your you know, whatever you've got in the background, refrigerator, notice board, stuff like that. And you know, that's another good way to actually use this processing pipeline. You know, you could, for example, attach your phone, because again, don't forget that this well, actually sorry, I'll jump back to this webcam, this mention of this webcam image capture. You could actually access that from your phone and maybe use your phone on, say, your bicycle, or your, like a robot, or your what are those things called, the Roomba? Is it the home Hoover thing, the home vacuum cleaner?
Okay. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then as that roams around your house, it could identify whether it sees like your dog or your cat or stuff like that. And maybe when it sees your cat, it sends a signal to the Roomba to kind of take a chill for like 2 minutes while your cat like wakes up and gets out of the way. You know, that's
a real edge case that you've discovered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
What you mean? You're gonna have to wait more than 2 minutes for a cat to wake up and get out of the way.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, if you see like, yeah, it'd just be interesting to get, you know, see what people do with this and what feeds they actually feed in, and what they then do with it.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Imagine it's somehow in like manufacturing or like, I don't know, processing of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
like
you could.
Stuff. It's like endless, probably.
Yeah, you could use this in, as you say, manufacturing to sort of make sure the right parts are going in the right places. And you know, we've deployed this dashboard, and that makes for a good demo. You know, people can see things arriving on the map, and they can see the images being updated and things being identified. But what you could actually do with this pipeline is, instead of deploying the dashboard here, you could deploy some other connector that either sends messages to Slack, sends messages to your machinery in your factory, or calls an API to actually turn things on and off. You know, for example, another silly one is that I could maybe turn on my light here, which is web enabled. I could turn on my light every time, you know, a giraffe is seen on a particular camera in London, so that, you know, I could be alerted to that. As soon as my light turns red, I'll be looking at my dashboard, trying to you know, spot the giraffe. Or I could send a notification. I think Thomas used the example of when the crowds at a certain point in London reach a certain point, you could send a notification saying, this area is getting crowded now. You know, you might want to give it a miss, or you might want to, you know, join the gathering or join the party or whatever's happening there. So yeah, a ton of different use cases, and it would be really good to see what people come up with.
Yeah, for sure. And if you do end up using this example and going through the tutorial, yeah, please let us know. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you, either in our Slack community or otherwise. Just yeah, get in touch.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks a lot, Theo.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah.